Welcome to the Coaches Cafe, brought to you by the Priority Academy. Hey there, folks. How are you doing? And firstly, thank you for joining me on this podcast. This is the Coaches Cafe, where I'm interviewing coaches and practitioners and complementary therapists and anybody basically in the helping industry who has a story, who wants to get their name out there, but also wants to offer some help and advice if they can on this podcast. Now, this is being recorded for audio purposes to go on a podcast. It's also being recorded on a video cast as well to go on YouTube. So whether you're listening or watching and listening, welcome. Thank you very much for joining me. It is my absolute pleasure today to introduce you to a good friend of mine called Tony Gordon. Now, Tony is a coach and does some hypnotherapy as well, and he's going to talk about that a bit later in the interview. But first of all, I just wanted to welcome Tony. Tony, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Graham. I appreciate it, and especially be honoured to be actually on and ask for your first guest on here. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome. It's great to have you on here, and particularly we were just chatting before we started, and Tony's told me that he's been in hospital for a few days before this. So I am absolutely grateful that one, that he's feeling better and is able to come on, but obviously that he's feeling better and is able to be at home rather than hospital. So it's great to have you here, Tony. Thank you so much. Where I wanted to start off with, if you could, is just tell us a bit about your story and how you got to becoming a coach and helping people with what you do now.
Yeah. I suppose we'll start over 20 years ago. I was a manager for a security firm in the Midlands in the UK. So we had over 800 guards. I looked after the control room, it's called, so the central point for the whole business. So my job then was to make sure that everybody had, the clients had all the support they required, but also other parts was the guards were trained in the right way. So they're up to the level to do these jobs. And we had the thing, the CCTV, the closed circuit television. We had an aspect of the business to do that as well. So there's a lot for me to learn from each aspect when I first got the job. But what I realised is when I was doing it is that the people who were training me didn't really understand how I learned. They sort of told me everything, but when I asked questions, said, well, how does this look? What would that feel like? They just went, well, we need to go to the next section now. Everything was like a tick box. And by the end of it, I went, I don't really know any more than I did at the beginning. I had a couple of pieces of information. I need to go learn myself. So I went and actually found someone who was doing the job and said, right, tell me what you do. Give me a description of it. How does it feel? And I realised that that was the problem, is they never actually identified which way I learned. So they just have a set way of doing it and that's it. And wondered why so many people leave. The attrition was terrible that we had. And we couldn't understand because we did a lot more training than other companies. We paid better than other companies. Why are we still losing people? And when I did the training myself, I realised that's what it was, because people didn't feel capable to do the job when they were put on by themselves. It was fine in the classroom, and they were always someone when they first training for a few weeks. Then that person goes, and you're all by yourself. So I started to look into how we could adapt that. And look, I still didn't understand at the time about learning principles or how people's learning styles, but I did realise we need to do something different. So we made it more interactive. We would take them to the actual places of work, get them to try things out, then back in the classroom. So switching between the two. And it carried on for a couple of years. Another long story, but I met my girlfriend who I knew a lot of years before. She was in Scotland, I was in the Midlands. We met through a connection through someone again, decided we wanted to see each other again. So I came up and spoke to my management and said, look, I want to take some time out to decide what I want to do. I'm not quite 100% sure. I think I would like her to come down to the Midlands, but I'm not sure, because that's why we split up in the first place all those years ago. So I was in the Navy and she couldn't handle it. So anyway, they agreed. So I took a year out. And I needed to do something while I was doing that. So I wanted to see if I could get another type of job. And I started working for a bank. And I was totally upfront and honest. I won't be here longer than 6 months to a year. But if you want to take me on for that time, you need it, I'm happy to do that. And one of them said to me in this, he says, I think you're going to love it here. And there's things that we can give you and you can give us that will help. But we'll see. And I turned up for that interview in a three-piece suit and a briefcase, because that's what I was like in the Midlands. And that's how the management level I worked at. This was going into a call centre in a bank. And when I looked at the first day in training, I'm sitting there like that, and all these kids were sitting with jeans and t-shirts. And I went, I really felt like a fish out of water. But within an hour or so, you felt part of it. And it was the trainers. The way they delivered the things was something I'd never seen before. It was incredible. So I started talking to them, started into the job, I liked that. Done some work with them on time, just to learn quicker how I can move up. And within 6 months, I realised I was starting to really move in place. And within a year or two, I was actually managing an area. And I felt I wanted to bring them what I'd learned from that training, what I learned in the past into this. So I spoke to them about the coaching side. And very lucky for them, they put me through Newcastle College to do positive impact coaching, which was amazing, an eye-opener. It's a lot like we call NLP now. It was based on that idea and that principle. But nowadays, positive psychology, positive impact coaching is really taken off. But when I did that in 2009, it wasn't really such a big thing. But it made my coaching different from everybody else's, because I learned that you had to identify a person's learning style. What I mean is, do they learn by seeing something, so they visual? Is it because they hear something? Is it auditory? Do they learn by emotions and feelings, kinesthetic? Some people are a mixture, and it's not always that easy to identify, but they allowed us to do it with some psychometric tests we used at the beginning with the actual classes. And that made a big change for everything, because right away, you were finding out before you even started the course what the people like, not during it. So we set it up from the beginning so that they got the best out of it from the first hour they were in that classroom. And it was an amazing experience. But then moving on, I moved up through different departments and running an area. And I started realizing the more I was moving up, the more they were taking the part away from me that I loved, which was the coaching. I became into a management role. It was more about stats and figures and delivering these and risk analysis, things, looking to see, well, where is the business struggling, to mitigate it, how to put things right. And I went, I'm missing what's me. So anyway, there was a chance then to do a couple of courses just about 18 months ago in hypnotherapy. I went along for a couple of day classes, did that. And then it just gradually built up because I'd had an illness. And I realised that I could use this to help me with doing some self-hypnosis. So I started to use that to help, because I've got a long-term illness with pain. I have recurrent kidney infections, which nobody can seem to stop. They stopped for about 6 months with operations, but after 2 or 3 operations a year for 8 years, it became too much even for me, mentally as well as physically. And one day I was sitting with my wife talking about all this, and I want to take this up maybe a bit further. So we'll go shop, we'll come back and we'll look at it, see what we can do. So I went out. I tell you, it's really hard, I don't remember a lot of that day. I remember going shopping. I remember the shop was Marks and Spencer's. We came out. I remember putting bags in the boot of the car. I remember opening the car door and pausing for a minute or two. I don't know why. I just stopped and I was just staring at the space. My wife was asking if I was okay. The usual, fine, I'm fine. I shut the car door. I didn't even get the seatbelt on. I remember that. I was struggling to get the seatbelt on. I was getting angry because I couldn't get the belt to go on, the buckle wouldn't go on. And then before I realised that, there was something in my face and I was wiping, and it was tears. And I didn't know what was happening to me. Then I started shaking, and literally physically shaking. Then I don't know, it was like bubbling. Most people would say the tears just flowed, but everything started coming out. My wife, it's a nurse, I suppose, her training. She didn't panic, she didn't do anything. She went, right, just calm down. She tried to get me, can breathe, come to breathe a little bit better, stop. But it was still happening. And we took a few minutes, we just sat and she just let me have that space for a few minutes. And this is what I don't really remember. The next thing I remember is being in the house. I remember we did talk briefly, and I went in the room, and I remember sitting, but I don't remember what happened. And I still to this day can't remember the rest of that day. And I've been on a journey since then. Because of the coaching, what I learned I had to deal with something myself, but I didn't know what. I went to see the GP after coming back to work on the Monday, Sunday in the work realised I didn't look right. They said my eyes were soulless, which wasn't like me, but yet there was nothing else wrong, and I wasn't saying anything wrong. But this was a manager then that knew me and I'd worked with, and she just said, something's not right, please go and speak to someone. So I didn't know what she was talking about, but I went in another room, she gave me a phone, and I picked it up, and there was this person sending me a counsellor. I went, well, why am I speaking to you? And she said, well, we've just been asked to put you through. It was called an open line. You can talk about anything, doesn't matter what it is. They never put any pressure on me to say it was anything wrong. Just talk. And that's still usual. I don't know why I'm on here. And when there's anything happened recently, we started doing it, and then the emotions all came back. And I explained what happened on a Saturday, but I can't really remember. She told me it was normal. So I didn't feel so freaky after that. I didn't feel as angry as I was at myself. I'd been angry, embarrassed, ashamed. When I said those words to her, it actually resonated some with me that why was I feeling that way? Because I didn't know what was wrong, so why should I feel that bad about myself? But I still did, and I couldn't shake it. And we did it for about 5 weeks, and after that she was brilliant. She turned around and said, look, you're meant to now go to CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy. It's another talking therapy. It's not going to work for you. She says, the reason being is you've analysed yourself better in the last 5 weeks than I have done. So you need something different, and I don't know what that is, but you need to find what's different for you. She'll then go back to my doctor and explain to them what I've done, and they're not saying just let me go. If I want to go ahead with the CBT, I can. It's just her advice was it wouldn't work. And that's when I found you. I actually went back and spoke to the GP, and everyone was told about medication. And I just started a course of yours, and I think it was NLP. Pretty sure first one did was NLP. Anyway, during a bit of it, you spoke about something about your journey. And one of the things you said was about going to the doctors and they give you that prescription. And when you go and you were thinking about, wait a minute, why am I taking these? What exactly is it? What is it you need? And I sat in front of him and he told me what he was going to do. And I went, fair enough, I know there's another medical problem, so I needed some medication. But he started talking about antidepressants and other things. And I went, why are you giving me them? He says, well, because of the amount of pain you've been in, you must be depressed. I went, what's the clinical definition of depression? And he just looked at me and he went, what? And I went, I'm trying to figure out why you're saying I'm depressed. If I am, fine. I just need to understand what signals I've given out or what I've done, because I've not realised them. I said, the only thing I felt was the feelings of one day when something happened to me, and I can't explain that. And I want to know why I can't explain it. What is it that's stopping me from looking at that day and saying, right, this is what happened, this is what I need to do. Do you honestly believe that giving me some pills to numb all of that is going to help, when it's always going to do is actually put it even further down at my subconscious than what it is at the moment? And he seemed shocked. And he just sat in front of me and went, well, how do you know you're not? I went, this is where the problem comes in all the time. We've got 60 to 10 minutes. We were actually at the 10-minute mark. And he said, look, don't worry about it. He made a call through to reception. And I realised we did was put his next appointment on hold. We did another 10 minutes. But what he realised then was, how do you know so much about this? I'm actually doing psychology and counselling at university. And I picked some things up enough of that. And one of the aspects I was dealing with was mental health. And I understood with depression that part of the problem is people are labelled with that far too quickly. I suffered stress and I suffered some sort of breakdown, whatever what is right for it on that day. But it's not about anything else that I did. I just can't get over that single day. There's something there. But I have not shown any other signs any other day. Now, get me right or wrong, but depression, I need to be out low mid every single day for a couple of weeks before you can define that. Yeah. So I'm not anxious because it's not been going on for like 6 weeks, 6 months, whatever. So it's only one episode. What I'm asking for is help to understand it. Anyway, never done a prescription, I didn't take it. I went away, remembered what you did in the course, decided to do the rest of the course. And as I was doing it, I realised that I could use a lot of things on myself that I'd learned from the course. And it made me, I know I found it a lot stronger, but I still have to see a psychotherapist because the amount of operations I've had, we've realised they've damaged a lot of nerve ends and they're never going to get repaired. So they actually told me, now we look back on it, the reason I had that breakdown that day is because the day before I was told I'm inoperable and I'm incurable. I have prostate cancer as well, but that's under control at the moment. But with the two of them together, I'd never bothered with prostate cancer. They could never understand that. My worry was I can deal with that because I know what it is. I don't know why this other thing's happening to me. And that's what I was angry about. And when he told me I'm inoperable, I could then understand why I had those feelings. I wasn't angry at me as such. I was angry that this has happened to me and nobody can tell me why. So that's what the counsellor was trying to tell me, that she thought my coping mechanism was hope. And it wasn't that. It was right in some respects, but she couldn't understand why it wasn't helping me, because the thing she didn't understand was it was a non-diagnosis. That's what was killing me. 8 years I'd suffered that. That was another 6-8 months long. And nobody could still tell me why this is happening. I've lost one kidney, my other kidney's getting damaged. I'm in the hospital all the time, but no one can give a definition to say, there's how you fight this. All they can keep telling me is we can just try to keep it under control when it happens. And that's what's happened in the last week. It's built up that I've managed to do, set my own business up, what people can see behind me. And that all came from the fact of listening to your experiences, your courses now, so I've now done about 5 or 6. I've used them to help me to help others. And that's where the stage I'm at now is that somebody asked me a question actually this morning. I got a message sent to me. What's more important to you then, money or helping people? I want one answer. There is no one answer with the two of them. My answer, I can't remember exactly what it was, if it's my business, then obviously I need to have enough money to be able to help the people, but to sustain things for me, what I class as sustainability and a suitability for me, for my family, to have a life that we want. But if you're asking me overall, then yeah, I would love to be in a position that I was sort of financially capable, that all I could do is pick who I want to work with and when I want to work. That's what really my goal's been, because Graham, you made me think of this last week when I was saying about my 1, 2 and 5 year plan. And the goal thing it was missing was the reason why I wanted to do all of those things. And that was because the time with my wife, we had lost a lot of time, as I said earlier, younger, when we split apart for a long time. Now we've been together again for 18 years, at least. Right, I'll be right 17 years this year, married, and a year before that. And what it made me realise was that everything I'm working towards is having the life that we always planned when we retired, which, because of my health, we thought was never going to happen. I'd never really have that. But I've managed to turn things around enough that I suppose confuses some of the Western medicalisation style. They don't understand why I can function the way I do. I was told I never could work again. I have to give that up because it was causing too much stress or strain on my body, but it isn't. And I've proved that to them that this is not what the result of this was, why I was ill there. That was just another infection. But I managed to work through that for 4 months there with those infections. Well, they were trying to work out what to do. And then they suddenly realised that my body said, he needs to be taken to the hospital and put on a drip. It took them 5 months to do that, and yet I've worked all through that. And no issues to me at all the way through it. So it's nothing to do with this, and that came about. It shows the power of our mind, because it's my mental ability that's helped me to deal with the physical disability that I now have. But you have to get the balance right, and that's what I want people to know. That it doesn't matter what adversity they've got or what they think they cannot do. We can all do what we want to do within reason. You're not saying someone's going to become a millionaire overnight or they're going to get their dream job the next day. But my job is not to do that. What I've realised is what I did that day, I took the first step towards finding how to improve me and how do I move on from here when I got these diagnoses. So that's what I say to everybody now. And I think it's Lao Tzu says the first step is to change the more from steps to change your life. And that's what I bring to people is I want to be able to get them into a position. They take the first step towards their goal in life or their aspiration. And from a long way around it, that's where I've ended up getting to now, realising what I did at the beginning was taking the first step to improve. And that's what I want to provide for other people.
Absolutely. Well, firstly, what a story. Thank you so much for sharing. We've had a conversation before, and we know that in some ways, we've got a similar history in the fact that I, like you, had a bit of a breakdown, if you want to call it that. And the rest of that day, I couldn't remember. The next thing I remember was actually being in the doctor's office the following morning. So we've talked about that before. What I didn't realise was that you did some coaching training through Newcastle College. My first ever coaching course was a distance coaching course through Newcastle College.
I don't believe that.
There you go. But no, thank you for sharing. And I think what's really the key message there is about how you work it with your mind, because of your illnesses and the pain you go through. You understand that because you know there's a diagnosis. You said there's a diagnosis that you know what it is, and it's not, that doesn't bother you. What bothers you is why everything happened. And I think that's such a key part, because if that illness bothered you, you would focus on it more and quite possibly make it worse. But because you don't focus on it, because you focus on your life and your time with your wife and setting up your business and helping other people, it's giving you a different focus, which means that just kind of sits there. Would that be a fair thing to say?
Yeah, I think this is a bit that they didn't understand, is to them, and I'm not saying anything against the doctors, and I've got a specialist consultant, and if I give a shout out to Edinburgh Beham, Dr. Michael Palm, or Mr. Michael Palm is a consultant, he's a reconstructive surgeon who basically saved my life 5 years ago because he did reimplantation, without which I probably wouldn't have been here, because I couldn't even walk at the time. His other kidney wasn't functioning, and bladder wasn't functioning right. And he could have left me any time, like 4 other consultants did, because they couldn't help. He's never given up on me. Even though when the cancer came, he found the cancer by accident. He was actually doing another operation again to help the kidney. Saw this lump thing there, went, they cut this out and go and get it checked. And it turned out to be cancer. He still oversees everything I do. And the one thing we have, when I spoke to nurses and doctors about him, as soon as I mentioned his name, everybody seems to change. And I think it's the respect. But what one person said to me was, it's the mental power of this guy, because he never, ever gives up on anything. His patience are everything. And a good example of that was that operation I mentioned there, the reimplantation. I was told there was only one slot available on Christmas Eve. That was the only slot. They never offered me at the beginning. I had to keep phoning and saying, look, I can't even walk. I can't struggle. Sorry, I'm struggling. Please, just get me in and do whatever you need to do this operation. And they said, well, we only have this one, but nobody wants to come in over Christmas. And I went, you're talking about me having a life or having Christmas. I've got a lot of Christmases I can have. I will have one if we don't get this sorted. So anyway, they called me to come in. He would do it. And I was told he should be away on holiday with his family, so he was going to wait till after the operation, wait till I came round and he'd go. I remember in the hospital bed, opening my eyes up a couple of hours after the operation, after the recovery room, and seeing him at the bottom of the bed. I was sure I'd seen him there, but I was on so many drips he had to cut through, and I stopped myself having to get it on. I was a little bit concerned over how I was. Anyway, the next day, Christmas Day that would have been, I remember them bringing something round. I couldn't really focus what it was, and I remember somebody talking to me. And again, I thought it was him, and I went, I'm hallucinating. They had me on ketamine rather than morphine, which was a lot stronger because of the pain. And I thought I was hallucinating everything. Anyway, a few days later, what I got told was that he was meant to be with his family, said that first day, and he didn't. He was still there that day after because he's that worried for the first 24 hours how I would be. But he stayed and made sure that I was okay before he went away. Wow. And that's what I was told. But right or wrong, I don't know. But there's that empathy for worrying your patients, but having the will as well to say, okay, family, yeah, Christmas has got to be a main thing, but then make sure that your patients come through something as serious operation as this. I thought was incredible. And that's something that made me realise for what I want to do with people is if I focus totally on my illness, I'm missing out when I'm helping somebody else because I'm focusing on me, not them. So I needed to turn that around. And I still don't know how quite I've done it. I've said all these different things that I've tried. It's came such a way that I don't suppress it. I've learned that much not to suppress what I'm feeling anymore. What I do is I get all the thoughts that come with it. I sort of do in my head is I acknowledge them. It's a bit like ping pong or table tennis, you'll call it. It's like there's things going back and forth in my head like that. That's how I feel. And sometimes I just smash it and it goes out the way. So that one's gone. That's how I feel. And then I serve, which is a lot like it, but think it's like a winning point, you'd say, so you're trying to win from, and that's the positive ones. So that's what my head sort of works on, and I've got people laughing, but I've got wee filing cabinets in my head. And if I get tell you one quick story, as I described to some people in our group, somebody asked me how you always come up with solutions so quickly, and I went, because in these filing cabinets, top one says NLP, one says hypnotherapy, I've got breakthrough coaching, I've got performance coaching, positive impact, and I never know what I'm going to need until the person's in front of me. So I can't say to them, this is when they come, this is what I'm going to do. I need to understand that intuitively when I talk to them. But what I learned was, it was a program when I was a kid, a cartoon called Hong Kong Fooey. And it was about this dog that became a superhero. And he was a janitor. And he would kick his filing cabinet and a drawer pops open and his wee outfit comes out. And he puts it on and suddenly he's not the janitor anymore. And that's what I sort of do is when somebody comes in, I kick the bottom. So I'm never 100% sure. I say till they're there. And whatever drawer opens, that's what I know. That's what I need to work with this person. And it sounds weird to people, but that's how my head works. And because I do that, that other file cabinet on the other side is the illness and all the things that's caused by that. And I know that sometimes I need to go to them to be able to deal with them, but they're kept in a separate bit of my mind. The side is the bit that can function. That side is what I need to do when it needs to happen. So by keeping them separate, I don't disregard my illness, but it means it's there for when I need how to deal with something. I can always go to it, but it's not me. That side is me. This is what I do. So that's the bit that I suppose to get across to people that I hate the word labeling with a passion. Someone, if they listen to anything I say, people should not call themselves, that's one thing that people do. Hi, my name's John, I'm depressed. I went, no, your name's John. Depression is not you. It may be something you suffer from, it may be something that you're dealing with, but it's not you. And it annoys me that people get that label, get told that. Look, I need to give up work because of what I've got. And I was sent to a forum with the GPs to go and with a psychoanalyst to discuss all this. And after the first session, I went, this is not for me. Not one person in that room is working. So what am I going to get the benefit there with how to learn how to deal with this if the only way I have to deal with it is to give up? And that's why I stuck to doing new courses and learning from people here. And then the group you've got, I've got so many friends that I've made in this group now with things that I attend now, the EFT meditation I've never done before, but we all give each other strength. And that's what keeps me going.
Fantastic. Two brilliant metaphors there, if I can pick them out. First of all, the tennis metaphor of you're either being served out and you're smashing them out of the park and getting rid of them, or you're serving and you're therefore in a place of control. You're in a place of playing to win. What a wonderful metaphor. And then the metaphor of the filing cabinet. I remember Hong Kong Fooey as a kid. I used to love Hong Kong Fooey, but just that metaphor of the filing cabinet of you can put the illness out over there in that filing cabinet, the drawers are shut. that's not what you're focused on. What you're focused on right now is you're going to kick the bottom of it, and the appropriate drawer is going to open for you or for your clients or whatever. Two wonderful metaphors. And it means, again, like I said about you either focusing or not focusing on your illness, because it's over there in a filing cabinet somewhere, you're not focusing on it. No. You're right. People do absolutely label themselves, and even ill people label themselves as being ill, which means they're focused on it, which means it becomes part of their identity almost. Yeah. And that just means that their body reacts to that. Our mind and our body are connected, and their body will just react to that. Oh, so it's part of me, so therefore I become ill. You don't do that, and therefore you can almost prove the doctor's wrong. You were saying beforehand that they didn't think you'd be doing this interview today, and yet here you are sat here doing the interview because you're approaching it that way.
And it's the one thing I'd like to say to people is make sure they understand that everything that we do is to help people, but at the same time, you need to still go to your GP, your counsellor, your psychoanalyst, your psychiatrist, whoever it is you see, still go to them because they are physically trained how to deal with the situations. What I would say is that you need to take more empowerment in yourself. You don't just go there. We brought up or indoctrinated as children that when you go and see, this was really fun with me, about a teacher, you go and see a doctor, you go and see a bank manager, these were the things that when they say something, that's it. It's fact, and you just believe it. It's not that way anymore. We've adapted so much as human beings that we've learned so much because of things like the internet, because of social media, because of the way the media itself portrays things now. We're a lot more astute in what we know about our own lives and our bodies. We're a lot more adept at actually taking things on board and saying, okay, ask questions. Is this the best option for me? Is there another option? Even if you don't really know what it is, sometimes the doctor will just sit and go, well, that is an option. That, of course, there is other, but this may be the best one at the moment. So you're right. I'm not saying with the pills is wrong, because I'd say that everybody needs some sort of medicalisation if there's an underlying condition. But sometimes when the condition is finished or there's much they can deal with, then you have things like chronic pain, you have things like fatigue that keep happening to people. They shouldn't have to continue. And doctors don't, they'll give you pills, you can stay on the rest of your life, because nobody really assesses, or not often are they assessed, but why am I still on these? And people say, I've been on it for 5 years. Why? I don't actually remember why I got them in the first place. So why are you not asking the question? Taking power himself, go and speak to your GP, speak to whoever it is, say you've heard about these things, you've heard there's alternatives, what ones might suit you. But if you can learn a bit more about them, it would sound even better if you can go in and say, right, I understand what you're saying about that, and I'll try what you want me to do. But I'd like you to see if you can find out if I can do some other modalities like EFT, said meditation, Reiki, reflexology, all these things that are there that the NHS doesn't always promote, that you can say to them, and there's a lot of them you can get through NHS, we just don't get told that, but there is things that can help. Ask for it and see what you can get.
Absolutely, and such an important message. We are told to trust doctors and teachers and lawyers and all of that sort of stuff. And we should, because they are highly trained. However, with so much information out there today, easily accessible information, we should be doing our own research as well. And I think that's a really good point you made. So thank you for that. So before we come to an end, I just wanted to give you the chance to talk about your business. And your business is called Changing Your Mind Limited. Yeah. And let you talk about that a bit, and who you help and why you help, and that sort of thing. So who's your business? What's your business all about, Tony?
It's Changing Your Mind Limited. We started up as a coach and hypnotherapy practice. I'm classing myself as a growth mindset coach. Some people have heard that term, but I look at a slightly different way from the way the term came out. The term was really started up by Dr. Carol Dweck, who's a specialist psychologist in the field of the mind. And she looked at growth mindset were people who had the aptitude and ability then to move on, but were willing to learn all the time to keep moving. And it's really became a term used in the corporate world. And it's mostly in business, and people look at this and somebody who really wants to move on, or a go-getter. There's all these different titles they'll use. They've got a growth mindset. The fixed mindset is someone who's happy to sit where they are, who doesn't feel that their abilities or their attributes can be expanded. So they just stay and don't push themselves any further. But I agree with the principle. I disagree with one thing, is it's not just for the corporate world. What my business was set up to do is to show people that everybody can have a growth mindset if you're willing to learn. A simple line from me is, the day you stop learning, you stop living. As simple as that. We learn as human beings every single day. We don't always realise it. You learn something new by watching something on TV or hearing on the radio, listen to us talk to friends, something that they've done. But you don't always look at that as learning because it's just something you do. But if you can sit down and say, okay, what do I really want to do? How do I get there? That's where I come in. I said earlier, my job is to guide people, to give them the tools, give them the techniques, give them the sort of support and the mindset to get that mindset in them that they can work towards a goal. What I will not do is guarantee they will get their goal. I said it earlier, I can't say you're going to be a millionaire or you're going to do this or that. What I'm saying is I will get you to take that first step. It's up to you to put the work in. And I make sure that's clear from everybody from the outset, is that I'll guide you every way possible. And just because we do a set amount of sessions of that doesn't mean we forget about each other. If you ever just need a little pep talk or somebody says, you hit a hurdle, of course, get an email to me, phone me, and we'll have a quick chat. It's just part of the service that I'll do. But I believe, like we talked about the illness, that I learned that much from that consultant of mine, is not to let someone just go just because you've done what you need to do. If you're there for them, it gives them sometimes that feeling that they've got someone in who'll listen, who's unjudgmental, who'll just be there if you need a quick chat. And sometimes you can just take one question. Why? Why are you feeling that way? Why that today? Or I can't. Okay, what can you do? What are you able to do? Just turn the question around slightly. And an example of that was I was working with someone a couple of weeks ago, and they came with us because they didn't know what the purpose was to them. Didn't know the purpose in life. That was fine. We sat down with them and we went through goals, everything they want to do. And they came in with one aspect, this is what I think I want to do. They turned out to be totally different. They're not even in the right industry that they want to be in. But the look on their face when we realised that. Now, I didn't do it. I just asked questions. They got the realisation, but the look in her face, to me, was better than any money that you'd ever get. It was incredible. And I said, I've been in hospital last week, so I got a couple of messages and I wasn't supposed to really check in, but I was checking everything every day. And a message came through from her that she's still going to keep working because she needs the money also to do it, but she's set up with Open University to do her degree now on what she wants to do. Now that she's focused, she knows how to do that. She's set out a plan, where she do it. She's not daft, she's not jumping from one to the other. She's keeping her full-time job. She's going to do it slower than normal, doing one module a year because she doesn't put too much pressure on herself with working full-time. But as she goes through it and as she gets better, she may look at the job to part-time, she said, so she can do some of that practical work at the same time. And I went, that's the result you want to hear. So if anybody else wants that kind of coaching to work on those kind of things, towards their goals, aspirations, even if you suffer from fears, feeling that I can't do that, I won't be able to do that, it's called imposter syndrome. It's a fancy title. It just means there that you don't also have the belief that you can do it. I can help with that as well. So anybody's getting those kind of things, anxiety, depression, please don't let it get that far. If you're stressed, come and speak to me. I can work with things there to stop it getting as far as getting a label. You won't have to be classed as a medicalisation thing of being anxiety or depression.
Wonderful. And how do people get in touch with you? Your website, your email address, etc.?
Change Your Mind Limited is there. So you can also get me through my attempt to email me, simply make it with that. So it's Tony Gordon at changeyourmindlimited.com. So changeyourmindlimited.com or get me. So you just want to email Tony Gordon, changeyourmindlimited.com. And if they go there, it's also got all the connections. See if you get through them all. Just click onto the website and you'll see there's little contacts that'll take you to my Facebook page, take you to my Instagram, my LinkedIn, whatever you want to contact me through. You'll be able to do that straight from the website.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And just before we go, you have a podcast as well. What's the name of your podcast so people can search that out?
Yeah, it's called Break Free from Your Monkey Mind.
Awesome.
It's on, you can get it on Anchor, Spotify, Google, Apple, you can get it now, and it's now on Amazon Music as well.
Wonderful. Awesome. So that's Break Free of Your Monkey Mind. Is that
Break
correct?
Free from Your Monkey Mind. Yeah.
Fantastic. Tony, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and thank you so much for joining me, considering everything you've been through in the last week. Is you've really shared your story there, but also some really helpful tips and that as well. And I'm hugely grateful. And if there's anybody out there who feels like grabbing Tony's help and getting in touch with Tony, he's just giving you the details. Rewind a little bit and you'll hear it again if you're not sure about it. Tony, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to speaking to you again at some point in the future.
Thank you, I really appreciate it again for inviting me on today. So thank you. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And folks, I will see you or you'll hear me and see me on the next episode of the podcast. For now, though, thanks very much and goodbye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Coaches Cafe. Why not check out the Priority Academy to see what courses we've got on offer for you?